All right, Islamic clarification. What do you want to clarify?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. The intention of this video is to refute the arguments presented against the preservation of the Quran by the group of missionaries, and to not just refute their arguments but to show to the people how ignorant they are about the preservation of the Quran and about the methodology of preservation itself. And if they don't understand a part of the process, or they refuse to understand it or oppose it intentionally, that does not make the process less credible or less effective. And throughout this process, we will also highlight and expose how ignorant they are about Islamic traditions and Islamic sciences. Listening to the argument of uh, not preservation of the Quran, and I was surprised by how weak the argument is. Isn't don't you get the reference from Bukhari and Muslim that we have multiple recitations of the Quran? We have 7 recitations, and the qira'at come from those 7 recitations. So is it something that you're pretending that the Muslims did not know, or did not we author these books, or our scholarship, or did they not print these books, or we don't need, or we don't know about the multiple recitations of the Quran, and we still say that it is perfectly preserved? So the argument which you're bringing, we already are aware of it. If you don't know about the qira'at, then it's not our fault, or you have an assumption that the qira'at should be preserved only the way of Hafs and Asim and Tariq al-Shatibi, not any other way.
Because you did not watch the whole presentation, you don't even know what my argument is. So I'm going to give you the argument in a very short manner right now. Okay. And if you have any doubt, ask me afterwards. So when I'm giving you a summary of these two streams that we did, this is part two, write it down when I'm speaking. Okay. Don't interrupt me when I'm providing the argument. All right. And then write it down. So last time we did the part one, I showed everyone that according to the collection of the Quran, there are verses missing, there are chapters missing, there are many surahs missing, and total Quran is supposed to be over 17,000 verses. Right now we have 6,000. This is what we showed last time. And I showed all the evidences where it is. Now, this time around, and then I showed that Quran is supposed to be in 7 ahruf, Sabah ahruf, because that's what Muhammad said. And Jibreel came and gave the Quran in 7 different ahruf. With that being said, this time in this particular live stream, I am showing that how this 7 ahruf became one harf. How? Then when first Abu Bakr collected the Quran, he made one Quran. Then Uthman took that Quran and he actually asked Zaid bin Haritha to write it in the Quraishi dialect. So Zaid bin Haritha had the authority to do whatever, because he said the rest of the three people, because there were only four people.
I'm forced to interrupt here to just mention that the person who was responsible for collection of the Quran was not Zayd bin Haritha, it was Zayd bin Thabit. And this is just to point out the ignorance of the missionaries who criticize the preservation of the Quran, that they don't even know the difference between the two, even though they use Zayd bin Haritha to criticize the Prophet ﷺ for his marriage ordeal with Zainab.
Not more than four. This is how it is written, and the names are written. And then Zaid bin Haritha had the authority to do whatever he wants to and put whatever word he wants to, because supposedly Quran was given in the Quraishi dialect, which is negating that Quran came in 7 dialect. But that is what it's written in your Bukhari, that Uthman said Quran came in the Quraishi dialect. So Uthman already rejected the 7 dialect issue. Now, third point. At that particular time, Uthman actually made sure that all the Quranic Musafs, including the whole copies or the partial copies, should be burned. So Uthman actually removed all the evidences of the 7 qira'ats or the 7 ahruf, not qira'ats, ahruf. Then comes that you have one copy and that copy does not have any diacritical marks nor the dots. And then what happened is every single person, no matter where he is, when they are adding the dots, they added dots in their location where they thought it is most convenient to put. For example, I showed you chapter number 33, verse number 36, where one wrote Kabira, one wrote Kasira. So Allah either sent a huge curse or Allah sends many curses. We do not know because somebody puts the dot up, somebody puts the dot down because nobody has the seven ahruf of the Quran.
Again, being kabira or kathira are not two contradictory terms, and the ahruf always complement. They are complementary and they don't contradict each other. So having the two is not a big deal.
Then I'm showing Mu'ajjam al-Qira'at, the different qira'ats. And then I showed from this book that Surah Ikhlas, which is one of the biggest important surah for you guys, which has only 4 verses, how that is actually have so many variations at this moment that we can see. So there is no 7 qira'ats of the Quran that is preserved because Uthman kind of made sure of it, quotes in quotes. He burned it. And then you do not have any Quran, early Quran, which has diacritical marks until the 10th century. So even the 10th century Quran that you have, which is called the Bru Quran, that does not have dots or diacritical marks on top of it. And
The irony here is that Adam is trying to show that absence of diacritical marks in the Quran means loss of meaning of words or ignorance of its pronunciation, and he's showing a book which does not have diacritical marks right in front of him. So, what does this suggest? I know the followers of Adam Seeker will not understand my point, but for the rest of you, I believe that you guys have caught the irony.
now we are here where we have a very small portion of Quran remaining, and that Quran has so many variations because of how the dots and the diacritical marks were being marked at. This is the total presentation of the two different parts that we did. What is your question now?
First of all, I'll go to the first point which you mentioned that there were 17,000 verses. Actually, just a small heretic group believes that. And yeah, that group came and they believed that the real Quran was lost. And that's a very small heretic group. The
So Bukhari is
majority.
heretic. When he is writing, Bukhari is writing that many chapters are missing. Sitta, even in Ibn Majah, then you have Nisai, many chapters are missing, many verses are missing, many surahs are missing. Surah
The
as
one,
big as Surah Baqarah is missing. Surah Bara is
Bara'ah.
supposed to be 143 verses. Now it has only 76 verses and so on and so forth.
Yeah, those verses which are mentioned in Bukhari, it's not Baqarah, it's Bara'ah, that hadith, it is because this was abrogated. And the
Okay, so
part of abrogation is
then I can
mentioned
say
within
there
the
are
Quran
8,000
itself.
verses which are abrogated. Same thing. It doesn't even matter how many abrogated. You don't
No,
have the proper number how many abrogated.
see, whatever was abrogated, it is mentioned in the Quran, I think chapter 2,
No, so
verse
if it is
6
mentioned
or
in Quran,
7,
then it is not
that,
abrogated. So number one, listen
no,
to me very carefully. If it is in the
the
Quran,
abrogation is
then
mentioned in the
there's not
Quran.
then it is not abrogated. It is abrogated. It is not abrogated in recitation. So can you tell me how many verses are abrogated in recitation?
The amount of verses which have been abrogated are not 8,000 or
I'm
whatever.
asking you a
That
simple
number
question.
is
Tell
not
me how
proven
many
by.
verses are abrogated in recitation.
It doesn't matter. What was not abrogated
It
and what was
matters. It
established is
matters.
with us.
It matters. How many verses? Give me the number of verses that are abrogated in recitation, not in hukam. The ones who are abrogated in hukam, I have them in the Quran that they are abrogated in hukam. I want to know how many verses are abrogated in recitation.
See, let me clarify to you what I'm trying to say. In the Quran, it is mentioned, "Ma nansakh min ayatin aw nunsiha."
I know this. I showed it last time. I'm asking you a
Yeah.
simple question.
So
Do
the
not
ones which
preach
were
the choir.
abrogated,
I am asking you a simple thing. How
the
many
ones which
verses have been abrogated in recitation? Please answer that question.
we did not record the verses which were abrogated, and God made us forget the verse which were
So
abrogated in
how many
refutation.
verses are abrogated in recitation?
This is what I'm telling you. There's no record of it. What
Okay,
were
so
abrogated? These verses were forgotten due to abrogation, and this is mentioned in the Quran itself that some verses were abrogated through forgetfulness, and they were removed from the Quran. And then these abrogated verses, which were abrogated in recitation, were not preserved. And pointing this out does not undermine the perfect preservation of the Quran.
Now, the second point is the Quran that you have remaining after Muhammad, which is supposedly quotes and quotes not abrogated, who collected it according to your own narrative?
It was collected through basically uh, the primary collection was done by Abu Bakr, who collected it,
Okay, Abu
but
Bakr.
it
Did
was
Abu Bakr wrote the Quran in the seven ahruf?
the seven ahruf were retained even after Uthman. You're trying to emphasize
So
this point.
Uthman destroyed every other dialect and kept
The
only
written
one
form.
dialect, which is the
The,
Quraishi dialect, correct?
yeah, yeah. See, the reason was he wanted to wanted the non-Arabs to just try to study one dialect, because the
So
non-Arabs, it was
Uthman
already an
destroyed so Uthman destroyed
no,
all the
he had
dialects and kept one
no.
dialect.
The Mus'haf al-Uthmani was uh, had recorded the variations of the
So
dialects, but
once
they
again,
standardized one.
Did
Yeah,
Usman destroyed all the dialogue and created one dialogue which is the Quraishi Musaf, Quraishi dialect?
yeah. If you say destroyed means
Yeah.
they were
So
removed completely, no, it was not. It was
so
still retained. Yeah, but he standardized it and he
it was still
enforced one
retained. Did
dialect.
Usman retained it? Yes or no?
Yes,
Usman
one.
retained it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that the
Let's
non-Arabs
see if
had to
Usman
study
retained
only one
it.
dialect.
Let's read the hadith. It says, if you have any difference in opinion, then write it in the Quraishi dialect according to Zaid bin Tabat. In case you disagree with Zaid bin Tabat on any point of the Quran, then write it in the dialect of Quraysh. The Quran was revealed in their tongue. Did Uthman maintain all the dialect or kept only one?
Here, this is the standardization.
Did
Standardization.
Uthman removed all the dialect and kept
No,
only one?
the one which he wanted to spread was the Qurayshi dialect. This is
So
what I've
did
told
Usman
already, because
removed all the dialects and kept only one
for
in
the
Uthmani
people, for
Quran?
the people, for the
Did
people. So now, instead of putting you through the back and forth argumentation which I had with these missionaries, I'll just explain to you the hadith itself, which he has quoted. What it says is that when Uthman, when he saw that the people might differ in their recitations because they were using different dialects of the Quran, and both were correct and both were valid, so he called Hafsa to bring him. He called for Hafsa to bring to him the collection of the Quran which was done during the time of Abu Bakr. So what he did was that he copied it, he made copies of it, and he assigned to this the assigned the job to Zayd bin Thabit and Sa'id bin Las and Abdurrahman bin Harith bin Hisham and Abdullah bin Zubair, so that they make copies of that. And then what he did was he said that if you differ in something, you and Zayd bin Thabit, then you should write it in the dialect of Quraysh. And both of them were revealed words, but he wanted to standardize and put it in the dialect of Quraysh because this was the dialect of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And why did he say that in the hadith? Specifically because Zayd was not from the Quraysh. He was from Medina, from Ansar. So this is the reason. And this is part of the preservation of the Quran. And this is something which is known to the Muslims. It's not something which the missionaries have suddenly discovered and they're trying to teach us the same thing. So this is what you already mentioned, that see, there were the Quran was transferred through oral tradition.
no,
There
it
were a
wasn't.
lot of
It was
scholars of
not.
Quran.
It was not. It was
It
not.
was
It was
transferred
not.
through oral
It
tradition.
was not. It was not. It was written tradition.
No, no, oral tradition.
No,
Written
it was
was
written
no,
tradition.
there was written and there was oral, and the
No, there
oral
was no
was
oral. Everything that was oral was destroyed and finished
no, no, that's not the
because
case.
all the people died in the battle of Yamama. and now he is writing, and he used only 4 people,
Not
and
all,
nobody has the full Quran
not
memorized.
a lot.
Nobody has the full Quran memorized.
So
Nobody
listen,
has the full.
here it is mentioned that during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, there were a large body of people who had memorized the whole of the Quran, and amongst them were the four caliphs: Talha, Sa'ad ibn Mas'ud, Hudayfa, Salim, Abu Huraira, Ibn Umar, Ibn Abbas, Amr ibn al-As, and his son Abdullah, Muawiyah, Abdullah ibn Zubair, and Aisha, Hafsa, Salama, and many others, and similar to them amongst the Ansar, as it's mentioned in the reference quoted in front of you. So what happened, and even the evidence that a lot of people had memorized the Quran was that the people who died, and they were those who had memorized the Quran during the Battle of Yamama, they were 70, and similar number of people, Hufaz, died in the Battle of Bir Ma'una. So this shows that a large body of Muslims had memorized the Quran, a large number of Muslims had memorized the Quran. Yet, when this assignment was given to a group of people, all of them were Hufaz of the Quran, including Zayd bin Thabit.
Okay, then if nobody, if people had the full Quran memorized, why Ibn Khuzaima, the only person who had two verses, chapter number 9, verse number 128, 129, 126, 127? Why?
Can you repeat the point again about Ibn
If
Khuzaymah?
there are a lot of people who had memorized the Quran, then why Ibn Khuzaima was the only witness to give the Quran, chapter number 9, verse number 128, 129?
Uh,
Abu Bakr collected the Quran. Many people died in Yamama who had some of the reciters, and then Abu Bakr picked the people. Hey, do you know some? Do you know some? Do you know some? Do you know some? And the Quran, chapter number 9, verse number 128, 129, was taken only from Zaid bin Tabat, sorry, Khuzaima, Ibn Khuzaima, the only witness of these two verses. Why? If so many people have memorized it, why these two verses were taken from only one guy?
this is about manuscripts. It's not about that. Now, instead of making you go through all the mindless argumentation which occurred after that, it's preferable that I teach you or explain to you how the process actually worked. First of all, the person Khuzaima or Rabbi Khuzaima, he is a very special man. The Prophet ﷺ, once in an incident, considered his testimony equal to testimony of two people. But then again, why do we need testimony of two people? Then for that, what we have to do is we have to go to the explanation of the hadith about the collection of the Quran, which was done initially during the time of Abu Bakr by Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anh. Zayd was chosen to collect the Quran because of his sound knowledge of the Quran and his memorization of the Quran. Though the others had also memorized it, but he was chosen by Abu Bakr to carry out this task. And when he was carrying out this task, he said that moving a mountain was easier for him. And this is to show how highly he considered this job, and this task was considered of high importance to him. Does not mean that the job assigned to him, he would have shortcomings in performing it. And he did not do it alone. He did it with a group of people who joined hand with him. And what he did was that it was not that the people from memorization they collected the Quran. The people had memorized the Quran and they were just collecting it. And why were they collecting the manuscripts if they had already memorized the Quran? And not just that, when Zayd was collecting the Quran, if someone brought a manuscript, he would ask for testimony that this collection was done during his this manuscript was written during the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And further to this, further to this, why he did like that while he had memorized he was still collecting the manuscripts. The reason is that excessive precaution. And like how these missionaries sometimes say that Zayd put in the Quran whatever he liked. No, that was not the case, because he backed it up with these manuscripts. So it was not the single action of Zayd. It, though he had memorized the Quran, he was collecting the manuscripts. So all of these testify to each other. Then the point still comes that why did Zayd find only a few verses written only with Khuzaimah? To clarify this, we have to quote another hadith where it mentions that Zayd, he said that he had memorized some verses from the Prophet ﷺ, and he could not find a manuscript for it. And then he searched for it. That means that he had already memorized it, so he knew that there was something missing. If he had not memorized it, or the people with him had not memorized it, they would not know about the missing verses and it would have been lost. And then he found it with Khuzaimah. And this is very, very interesting, as Khudaima is a person whose testimony was considered as testimony of two people, as we quoted in the previous hadith a while back. So this is the person. So all of this complements each other and actually testifies to the perfect preservation of the Quran. And even the details of certain verses and how they were collected and with whom the manuscript was found has been recorded. So all of this actually strengthens the case of perfect preservation of the Quran.
Do not know what are the total number of verses, because none of the people had memorized the whole Quran. None of them has memorized the whole Quran. Give me one single person who had memorized the whole Quran. Give me one. One person who
Salim,
has memorized the whole Quran.
Salim Mawla Hudhaifa, Zayd bin Thabit,
Okay.
Abdullah bin Mas'ud.
Okay. Is Zaid bin Tabat alive at the time of Abu Bakr when he is collecting the Quran?
He's the one who's collecting the Quran. He's the one
He
who's
is not.
collecting the
Oh
Quran in
my
the hadith,
goodness.
which you're the one which you're quoting.
I'm going to kick you out right now. You are talking about Uthmanic collection. I'm not talking about Uthmanic collection. I'm talking about Abu Bakr collection. This is Abu
Wait,
Bakr collection. Okay.
read the hadith
At
which is
this
in front of
time,
you. This is a point again where I just point out the foolishness of the missionaries, that they cannot even understand and read the hadith which is right in front of them, and they cannot notice that Zayd bin Thabit was the person involved in during the Abu Bakr's collection, as well as it is written in the hadith right in front of him. So this shows the utter incompetence of the missionaries trying to criticize the preservation of the Quran.
at
Adam,
the
read the.
time of Abu Bakr, is Zaid bin Tabat alive?
Yes.
Okay. Why does this hadith says that these two verses were only collected by Zaid ibn Khuzaimah? If it was with Zaid bin Tabat as well had memorized these two verses.
Now, here the discussion ended with the missionaries, but I have to point out two things. First of all, when the Quran was revealed in one dialect, the Prophet ﷺ himself requested Jibril to increase it in more dialects. And this is recorded in authentic tradition. And this was to make it easy for the people, because initially the ones who were the audience to the Quran were the Arabs. And so revealing in revealing it in multiple dialects made it easier at that time and contributed to the preservation. And even these multiple dialects never contradict each other. So once this was done, and then the second point is that about the abrogation. And one more thing is that the Prophet ﷺ, he used to present the Quran to Jibril every year, and that the year of his death he presented it to him twice, and it was witnessed by prominent companions who were experts in the Quran. And during this presentation, all that was abrogated was established, that what was abrogated in recitation and would not be retained in the Quran. So further to this, when we discuss about, and this presentation was witnessed by companions like Zayd bin Sabit, Abdullah bin Mas'ud. So they knew what was abrogated and they had the perfect memorization of the Quran preserved in their memories with them. Further to the manuscripts which was collected by Zayd bin Thabit later during the time of Abu Bakr. Uh, and one additional point which I would like to add is that when we argue about the preservation of the Quran, it is not in comparison with the other holy books, because no other book even comes close to the standards of the preservation of the Quran. We contest this point against the standards set by the preservation of the Quran itself. And the main argument of the missionary is that they don't know how it was preserved while there are ahruf or while there are qira'at. If you want to learn further about the preservation of the Quran, you should read the text and the things which are presented and written and recorded by the Muslims, so you can accurately learn about it rather than going to missionaries who don't understand the process of the preservation of the Quran. So, as they don't understand it, they try to say that because we don't understand it or how it was preserved, we cannot comprehend it, or we had not bothered to learn about it, it is not perfectly preserved. So this is a fallacious argument and a fallacious stand.